Part 12. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 111. Please vote for this chapter if you have any votes. Please vote for this book, thank you. Jia Yan looked at the three living people below him, and a courageous strength emerged from the bottom of his heart. He believes in himself. Through countless adventures and endeavors, he finally went from being a little mosquito at the beginning, a little mosquito that could be killed with a slap, and finally reached this point, declaring war on the strong humans. I am not at my limit now, I still have a long way to go. You just happen to be in front of me. I'm not targeting humans, and I won't be partial to anything. Now that you have that crystal in your hands that may be useful to me, I just want to have it. Because you will definitely not give it to me, so I can only fight with you. Buzz. Jia Yan kept cheering himself up in his heart and kept looking for reasons to fight. In fact, Jia Yan had to admit that for all the reasons he looked for, he missed the most important one. That means he has a passion in his heart. Looking for a strong person to fight? He couldn't wait to prove how powerful he was now. And those foreigners at the moment can be considered extremely powerful beings even among humans, which is exactly in line with his desire to test himself. Buzz buzz. The vibration frequency of Jia Yan's pair of wings gradually increased. The three foreigners below also gradually adjusted their breathing, and each of them looked at the machine above them with solemn expressions. But as long as you look carefully, you will know that its true appearance is a flesh and blood monster wearing a metal exoskeleton. None of them dared to look down upon them, even if the army of cockroaches had already withdrawn. But the withdrawal of the army of cockroaches was all caused by the monster in front of them. The power of this monster cannot be underestimated. Shoiki Yokota, an immortal monster among humans, slowly improved his katana. The soles of his feet were stepping slowly, which was a relatively advanced way of combat movement among the ancient Japanese warriors. When the opponent attacks like lightning, Yokota can also use his footwork to create a certain distance, and then slashes down with his katana like lightning. James, the super mutant with golden eyes, although he did not show the strongest super mutant state along the way, the combat strength he showed before, even if it has not reached the combat strength of Shoiki Yokota during his victory, is still comparable. Big. As for Hampton, the Star-Spangled Banner Master who seems to be the weakest among the three, he still feels like the old god is still there. But this cannot be concealed. This person does not look strong, but he has survived to this day with two other masters. If you underestimate him, you will easily capsize in the gutter. Buzz. Jia Yan's body is slowly rising. Buzz. Buzz. When the sound of his wings reaches the limit that can be achieved, the body that was almost hovering was suddenly released like a tightly plucked string. Groan. The sound of flapping wings is earth-shattering. It has changed from a simple animal flapping noise to an ultra-high frequency that can only be emitted by airplanes. Deafening. Jia Yan's body finally crashed down towards several people. Coming. Shoiki Yokota, who was at the front of the three, raised the katana in his hand decisively. Jia Yan's lightning-like body was completely captured by his dynamic vision. Shoiki Yokota stomps the pace. His right foot rubbed the ground, and he took a step forward. Cut. The katana was like a bright white brilliance, aiming at the metal body that was charging forward, slicing away like lightning and flint. At the same moment, the twinkling look in Jia Yanfu's eyes was even more dazzling. In his eyes, it was as if the Japanese monster in front of him had slowed down its movements 10 times. Lift the knife. Take a step forward. Cut it off. The feeling that Jia Yan had when chasing the bat emerged clearly again. This is an illusion that stops time. In fact, time around Jia Yan still passes so fast. But in his senses, time seemed to slow down. This is something that can only happen if you are extremely concentrated. Maybe it's just an illusion. There are many such cases among humans. For example, some people encountered a car accident but thought about a lot of things the moment before they were hit by a vehicle. And Jia Yan was even more thorough, actually at this moment. There's still time for analysis. Tighten the left wing flapping muscle a little. Hurry and tighten it. If you don't tighten up, you will be hit by the opponent's sword. You will definitely die or be seriously injured. Jia Yan controlled his body and launched an attack on the strongest of the three foreigners, Shoiki Yokota. The azure crystal is on this person. Jia Yan didn't know that this person had a series of titles, let alone that he was even known as one of the top 3 human beings in the world. But this man's power is indeed beyond Jia Yan's imagination. Previously, I even cut a purple beetle in 2 with one knife. He thought that even if he was wearing a metal exoskeleton, if he was hit, he would probably be scarred by the opponent's katana. If the metal exoskeleton was not as hard as the 2 killers promised, he would end up being cut in 2 like a purple beetle. It's not impossible. However, it was this feeling of danger that made Jia Yan put his first target on this person. It's too dangerous, so take advantage of him before he recovers from serious injuries and fatigue. This cut is not as fast as the purple beetle just now. If you move your left wing a little, you can avoid it. Jia Yan was flying at high speed, trying hard to control his left wing. A moment of judgment can determine his life or death. Nervous. Stimulate. Groan. Aha. A huge black metal object changed direction in a few tenths of a second. And the slashing samurai sword was shiny and slashed diagonally from top to bottom. Clang. The diagonal cut of the katana is close to the flying figure. Pass by friction. A series of sparks appeared. It was rubbed, but it didn't hit. The strange and faint light in Jia Yan's eyes became even more intense. Like a ignited flame. The figure reflected in the compound eyes is getting closer and closer. Getting closer. Jia Yan stretches his front foot forward. Prick. However, while stabbing forward, Jia Yan only saw the target person in front of him, moving quickly. Poof. Jia Yan's outstretched front foot only left a shallow scratch on the man's forehead. Bright red blood spurted out. Crack. The 2 crossed over instantly. The battle for a few tenths of a second was thrilling. Jia Yan sprinted forward, and in just a short moment, he changed direction in the air to avoid the slashing katana. Then came the Japanese Yokota Shoiki. In an instant, he took a step and ducked to the side to avoid the fatal stab from Jia Yan's front foot. But Jia Yan sighed in his heart. Although it looks like a tie, in fact, this master of Japan is dead. Why? Because his front foot blade scratched the opponent. The front foot is in the film, with the blood toxins of a big frog. This man will be paralyzed for at least a few seconds. The next time he turns around, he will die. Ignoring Shoiki Yokota behind him, his high-speed flying figure continued to rush towards the 2 star-spangled banners behind the Japanese monster. These 2 guys shot Jia Yan twice. Even in China, the homeland of his previous life, he wreaked havoc and almost caused death and injury to the people. Although Jia Yan is no longer a human being and no longer has much sense of belonging to the country, but when he saw the little girl being killed by 2 people that night, for some reason, his body was faster than his thoughts and he already made a move to save her. Since there have been so many feuds, then kill him. No need to say more. The compound eyes of Jia Yan's mountain have a faint cold light, which is even more icy. Rush directly towards the middle-aged man in the country called Hampton Stars and Stripes. At this moment, Hampton finally showed his final trump card. His green eyes suddenly blinked. It turns into a color of green and gold. It turns out that Hampton is also a super mutant, but his mutation modulation failed and even made his face look as old as it does now. His strength can only maintain the state of a super mutant for an instant, and he will soon fall into a period of weakness. Compared with James on the side, it can be said that he is completely different. But at this moment, the sense of crisis brought by the flying creatures in front of him made him directly unfold his final trump card. The Desert Eagle in Hampton's hand still has the only bullet left. This bullet is a bullet that can only be used when the super mutant state is activated. It can be said that it is the trump card among trump cards. In an instant, the well-known pistol named hand cannon, with its black muzzle, was aimed at the charging metal flying creature. The extremely powerful calculation and judgment of the super mutant allowed the muzzle of the gun to shoot directly towards the space that Jia Yan was about to reach, and fired the bullet with a bang. Change my direction instantly. Jia Yan had already judged that this person was going to attack him a moment ago. He didn't doubt that these extremely powerful human masters could hit him when he was flying at extremely high speeds, because in the previous two encounters, he was hit directly once, and only narrowly escaped the other time. So Jia Yan instantly controlled his body and made a change of direction in the air. The moment the gunpowder filled the air, he saw the Desert Eagle pistol close at hand, spitting out a ball of flame. The temperature of the flame was so high that Jia Yan, who was 5 meters away, felt that his body was on fire. Then the bullet cut through the air and hit the road he was going to go on. Jia Yan changed direction instantly. MTHE bullet could only hit a short distance away and rush towards the top of the cave. Snapped. Almost the moment the bullet came out of the muzzle, a stalactite on the top of the cave made a crisp snapping sound. Hit by this unique and powerful bullet, this stalactite, which was as thick as an adult's thigh, actually exploded, sending debris all over the sky. Hampton's expression of determination has not completely faded away. Jia Yan, who passed by the bullet, had already arrived in front of him in flying form. He saw the metallic flying creature in front of him that grew bigger and bigger in an instant, gradually occupying the entire field of vision. The expression on Hampton's face changed in an instant, as if time was slowing down and turning into panic. He wants to move. But at that moment, he was not allowed to dodge. At this moment, this old-looking man from the Star-Spangled Banner nation seemed to be shocked in another way. At such a close distance, he finally recognized the true identity of the creature in front of him. Mosquito. Could it be that it was the giant mosquito that appeared when the two of them wreaked havoc in the border city of China a week ago? This moment of speculation flashed past. Poof. Jia Yan's right foot is equipped with a sharp blade. Stab it hard into the center of Hampton's head. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 112. This chapter is too late, please support me by collecting it. God. Hampton's eyes widened. He felt like an object from the outside world was piercing deep into his head. Something called vitality is disappearing quickly. The flying creature that jumped in front of his eyes stretched out its arms and legs and held his head in its arms. But this kind of hug is not a good thing. He paid the price with his life. God. Hampton muttered. Jia Yanfu's eyes continued to flash with fierceness. The human skull is extremely hard. Jia Yan used the inertia of his forward thrust and the sharpness of his forefoot blades to pierce Hampton's head fiercely. At this time, the ruthlessness in his heart was even stronger. His right foot stabbed Hampton in the head, causing him to be stirred. Ah! Hampton screamed. The brain tissue is directly damaged, and there is only one ending for humans. That is death. The fire of life in Hampton's eyes disappeared quickly. This powerful man from the Star-Spangled Banner who had been in China for so long died immediately. Perhaps such a strong person has other legendary stories, and even has the potential to advance to the top 10 in the world in the future. But if you die now, there will be no future. Jia Yan's heart was cold. This was the second time he killed a human since he killed the Yu family and his son. But this time there was no emotion or excitement. He has long known that he and humans are now two different species. If he wants to kill humans or save humans, it all depends on his own preferences. No one can say anything. Killing, just killing, is the same as killing crickets and bats. The next moment, Jia Yanfu's eyes sparkled again. James, a native of the Star-Spangled Banner, who was very close, saw his companion being stabbed into the head by a metal creature flying in the sky, and he knew that his teammate would definitely die. He directly pulled the trigger in his hand. Boom! At that moment, Jia Yan pushed hard with his 6 legs and quickly pushed himself away from Hampton's head. Bullets are coming at a rapid rate. When Jia Yan's metal exoskeleton on the left side made a huge noise. Got hit. Jia Yan was shocked. This bullet hit Jia Yan in the abdomen like an unimaginable punch. If I had to compare it to someone's punch, I guess only Superman from the movie The Star-Spangled Banner could have delivered this punch. Fortunately, he hit the edge of Jia Yan's left abdomen. Jia Yan instantly felt a huge force knocking him away. His body flew wildly to the left, and then hit the rock wall of the cave on the left hard. The rock wall broke countless small stones. The entire abdomen was twisted by the force of the bullet. Fortunately, the metal exoskeleton has a twist limit protection. When the twist angle reaches a certain level, it will automatically block the twist angle and stop the twist. Otherwise, his abdomen is likely to be directly twisted, because at this time, James is using a weapon that can only be used by super mutants. The impact of the bullets possessed by this weapon is simply not something that he can compete with now. Jia Yan hit the rock wall, but he didn't have time to look at anything. He flew directly, using his ultimate speed. Sure enough, at the same moment he took off, another round of bullets was fired at the location where Jia Yan was before, hitting a deep crater in the cave wall. This young foreigner named James was so powerful that he actually hit the fast-moving Jia Yan several times. Jia Yan quickly flew behind a huge stalactite at the top of the cave. When he was in the blind spot of the opponent's sight, he had time to look at the damage on his abdomen. He did not feel any huge damage to his abdomen, and it seemed that his own clot defense did not appear to be damaged in any way. But at first glance, I couldn't help but be a little surprised. The metal exoskeleton did not directly show bullet wounds as he thought. Instead, it scratched the metal exoskeleton on the abdomen after leaving a faint mark. It did not cause much damage. What Jia Yan doesn't know is that among the special military steels in the world, the strongest is a certain kind of special ship steel produced by Tsarist Russia. The yield strength of that steel reaches 1175 MPa. If you want to compare it, it is the same as that of a missile explosion. Will not be easily broken down. Of course, military steel cannot only be compared in terms of strength. For example, when used on ships, durability, magnetic response, toughness, corrosion resistance, etc. need to be considered. Simply looking at strength is meaningless. But many people may not know that the latest special steel produced by the Stars and Stripes country has reached or even exceeded the special steel produced by Tsarist Russia. Surprisingly, he was hit by the super mutant's special firearm without any major damage. Looking at it this way, it can even defend against close-range shots from ordinary assault rifles. The average thickness of the metal exoskeleton worn by Jia Yan is about 5 mm, and it is even thicker in some important parts. Unexpectedly, this metal steel is really as hard as the two killers said. Their bragging was not exaggerated at all. It seems that some compensation must be made to these two people in the future, otherwise I will feel very sorry. Monster. James, who was staring at Jia Yan with golden eyes below, had a look of shock on his face. This was the first time he missed shooting a creature with a gun specially designed for super mutants. In other words, his marksmanship was accurate enough. Even if Jia Yan flew quickly, he still hit one of the two bullets. But the shot that hit actually only caused the opponent to hit the rock wall. This scene reminded James of something, and then his expression changed. He had also seen the Mosquito picture that went viral on the Chinese internet. That mosquito was also shot by me on that night of the battle, but it was unharmed. And now the more I look at this metal armored monster, the more it looks like that mosquito. It's actually you. James couldn't believe it. Originally he only thought it was a monster that appeared occasionally, but now it was fully armored and appeared in front of him, and the monster seemed crowded and had a strong sense of combat. From this series of strange information, James only thought that there was a mysterious monster. Powerful forces, behind all countries and figures, control everything with a big hand. The unknown is always scary. However, he did not expect that there was no shady secret behind the monster, nor any mysterious force. He was just a mosquito reborn as a human being. Perhaps it should be said that rebirth itself should make people feel the mystery of the unknown. However, James no longer needs to think so much. At this time, he is thinking about how to escape. Even his greatest reliance, the super mutant's firearm, was actually unable to cause much damage to the flying monster. If you don't run away like this, you are a fool. He is retreating towards the underground world outside the cave. Even though there was a huge army of giant beetles, he still had some ability to resist. Unlike facing this flying monster wearing metal armor, he couldn't see any possibility of victory. The man's golden eyes changed slightly at this time, slowly turning back to blue again. This is a sign that the super mutant's abilities are fading. He wants to escape, but can Jia Yan let him escape? He is not so kind. Buzz. Jia Yan flew out from behind the stalactite again. Snapped. James, who was running away in a hurry, fired a bullet casually. But the accuracy of this bullet was actually a lot off. Jia Yan flew slightly diagonally and easily dodged the bullet. At the same time, Jia Yan discovered that James' arm was twisted strangely. It turns out that the super mutant's special weapon is a super large caliber pistol with a recoil greater than that of the Desert Eagle. It can only be used when the super mutant state is turned on. Under normal conditions, super mutants do not have that intense adrenaline secretion and do not have strong computing power. Using this kind of firearm will not only hurt themselves, but also make it difficult to hit the enemy. But James doesn't care about so much now. If you don't shoot, you die. Bang. He picked up his injured arm and fired a bullet at Jia Yan. Jia Yan felt a little bit about this person, so a light flashed in his eyes, and he approached at a faster speed without dodging. And that bullet missed 180,000 miles away. Now, James doesn't have the same magnanimity and combat effectiveness as he once shot Jia Yan, who was flying at high speed. The distance was shortened in an instant. James' expression changed drastically. The combat IQ of this flying monster is too high. He knew that he was close to being released from the super mutant state, but the monster probably didn't know. If he drew his gun and shot, the monster should have evaded or hesitated, but the opponent seemed to have seen through his shooting accuracy. No more, instead, he collided directly with him without dodging. Shit, James used his uninjured arm to pull out the combat dagger stuck on the side of his body. He is treating it seriously and will not run away. There's no point in escaping anyway, why not just fight with a dagger? After the super mutant was tortured by the army of cockroaches and lost most of his combat effectiveness, it can only be said that he was unlucky when he encountered a monster like Jia Yan. But there is no such thing as luck or bad luck, because it was precisely because of their loss of combat effectiveness that Jia Yan came out to intercept them. If these people were at their peak fighting ability, Jia Yan would not be so stupid as to fight them face to face. Die. Jia Yan's body, carrying a series of after-images, rushed into James' arms. At the same time, the young super mutant from the Star-Spangled Banner Nation also raised the dagger in his hand and slashed at the flying figure with a bright blade. Clang. The dagger struck the hard metal armor on Jia Yan's back, leaving only a faint mark. Poof. Jia Yan inserted a pair of foot blades into the opponent's heart, piercing deeply. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 113. Some chapters have returned to normal. I will continue to check and slowly restore all chapters. James shook his body, forced himself to raise his arm again, and was about to make another slash. But at this time, the cold look in Jia Yanfu's eyes became even more intense. He controlled a pair of blades on his front feet and stirred the opponent's heart suddenly. Poof! The raised arm suddenly stopped. Then, the dagger slowly fell to the ground. Bang! My arms finally softened. James' eyes returned to green, looking at the grey scenery of the cave above his head. I don't know what he was thinking at this time, whether he regretted this trip to China. Jia Yan slowly pulled out the pair of front legs that stabbed his heart. James slowly knelt down and his head gradually lowered. Finally, his pupils expanded and he fell directly towards the ground. The super mutant Jian Gran, who even drug addicts were extremely afraid of, died in the hands of Jia Yan. Such a strong person is not even close to the national level, but he is equivalent to an existence like a drug addict. He is definitely not a cabbage on the roadside. No matter which country he is in, he is a treasure-like existence. The two masters of the Star-Spangled Banner Nation probably never dreamed that they, two of the top masters in the Star-Spangled Banner Nation, would actually die, and not at the hands of humans, but at the hands of a giant bird that they had seen before. At the feet of the mosquito monster. Died. Jia Yan flew slightly higher, and he was also a little emotional. An absolute human master was killed by his enhanced combat power. Although killing them is not that easy and even involves certain dangers, no matter what the process is, it is Jia Yan who kills them in the end. Hey! Something fell out of Hampton's trouser pocket. Jia Yan turned his head slightly and saw the old-faced Star-Spangled Banner Master falling out of his trouser pocket. A small round billowing bottle. Black liquid. Jia Yan glanced at it, and his compound eyes immediately stared. This liquid is something he will never forget. He had soaked in this liquid before, and the feeling that life was worse than death was still clear to this day. And it was precisely that mutation that allowed him to grow into the exaggerated giant version of the mosquito he is now. Not only is the combat power enhanced, but more importantly, a thick clot defense appears on the surface of the body. It can be said that among so many mutations, the effect of the black liquid is definitely the best. Because of his unforgettable memory, Jia Yan can tell the shape and color of the black liquid at a glance. Unexpectedly, Hampton also had a bottle of black liquid in his pocket. Jia Yan was overjoyed. He was worried about where to get the black liquid because the factory had closed down. Unexpectedly, this dead Star-Spangled Banner citizen directly gave him a bottle. Plus there are so many dead giant moths all over the ground, it's enough for him to become stronger again. No, there's that blue crystal too. Jia Yan suddenly thought of the blue crystal, which was still in the hands of Japanese masters. He was poisoned by a big frog, so he should be paralyzed or dead. Jia Yan didn't have time to take a closer look at the bottle containing the black liquid, and turned back in a hurry. But in his compound eyes, there was no trace of Shoiki Yokota. Run away? How is that possible? Jia Yan was shocked when he saw the empty cave front. He quickly flew forward and saw long blood stains on the dark cave floor. This blood mark went all the way, and then disappeared upwards when it reached the entrance of the cave leading to the surface. There was also a faint sound coming from above the passage. The Japanese master actually did not fall into paralysis, but escaped quietly. Jia Yan listened to the voice above, and his shining compound eyes became faint again. He flapped his wings. Chase upward. Shoiki Yokota shot out the winch equipment in his hand with all his strength. He has thin rope equipment in both hands and arms. This equipment can launch ropes. there is a very advanced adhesive tissue on the top of the rope. When the rope is shot out, the adhesive tissue sticks to the irregular rocks and is very strong. Then Yokota will start the device, and the force of contraction of the device will pull him upward. When the rope is pulled out, shoot out the rope on the other arm and pull out the previously glued rope at the same time. I don't know how this adhesive tissue is designed. It is obviously very sticky, but it comes off just by pulling it out with your hands. In this way, using both hands alternately, you can easily climb places like rock walls. The rate of rise is quite fast. But no matter how fast it is, can it be faster than Jia Yan's flying speed? He's chasing me. Yokota stared behind him with a gloomy expression. In the cave at the bottom of the passage, Jia Yan flapped his wings and flew extremely fast. Buzz! Shoiki Yokota sprints towards the top and pursues him. Yokota looked cold as he controlled the rope and placed himself on a protruding stone that could accommodate a person. Then he drew out the samurai sword from his waist. The blade was sharp, and there seemed to be a stream of light flashing. Yokota Shoiki took a deep look at his sword. The top 3 strongest men in the human world, known as monsters, have experienced countless dangers in the past, and there were even times when they were more desperate than in this situation. But he survived those times, completed tasks again and again, and finally became a strong man at the national level in Wagyu town, and because of his long lifespan, his status has been slowly improving. If you go back, you should have been promoted to another level, and perhaps you should have truly entered the core class of the Japanese country. Obviously, the more dangerous things in the past have been stopped. Why do I always feel that I can't survive this time? Shoiki Yokota looked at his sword, and then held the handle of the sword tightly with both hands. Buzz! Jia Yan's sprint speed soared up extremely fast, as if the ancient dragon soaring in the 9 heavens was about to break out of its chrysalis and let out his true dragon roar. Essence, energy, and spirit are the most critical elements for a person in battle. No matter which one, Jia Yan is at his peak at this moment. At this time, he felt that no matter who he fought, he could win. Groan. Finally, the sound of flapping wings once again exceeded a certain limit. Until now, Jia Yan had no idea why the sound of his flapping wings often changed into another sound. But now he has a clear understanding in his heart. This is actually because his wings are too big and the vibration frequency is too fast. The edge speed of the wings actually exceeds the speed of sound. The sound transformation is because the moment the sound barrier is broken, the speed of flapping the wings reaches another level. Vibrating wings can break through the speed of sound, which shows how fast Jia Yan is now. In an instant, they reached the range of rocks where Yokota Shoiki was. There is no confrontation, no prelude. Kill. Death. Shoiki Yokota also raised his samurai sword and pointed it at the armored mosquito that was sprinting towards him. A no-frills attack for attack. The strength of the world's monsters cannot be underestimated. Even though he is injured several times and still has a lot of green blood virus in his body and the big frog green blood virus that Jia Yan brought to him with his front legs, this does not prevent him from cutting out nearly a blow with all the strength. This was the full force of an undead monster that had dominated the world for decades. Either life or death. But Jia Yan also has his own persistence in fighting. After his rebirth, he has experienced a lot of life and death. So when facing the top 3 superpowers in the human world, he will never retreat. One word, war. Fight, fight, fight. Aha! Yokota Shoiki's samurai sword shined ferociously, and the blade was extremely sharp, and he cut it down with one strike. Jia Yan is extremely fast, using wings that break the sound barrier to drive his flight speed. How could his speed be slow? But the instantaneous judgment of both is excellent. Jia Yan found that time in his senses had slowed down again. But the other party seems to have the same ability. When cutting out the katana, this sword is constantly making subtle adjustments. No matter how hard he tried to hide in an instant, the blade was pointed at him. So strong, Jia Yan found that he couldn't escape at all. Since you can't hide, then don't hide. He is furious inside. The strong versus the strong, only to see who is more ruthless. Even if the other party's life is exchanged for serious injury, that is enough. Stab me. Jia Yan stabbed the opponent's chest with a pair of front feet, and at the same time, the blade on his head was hit hard. The battle now is whether the metal exoskeleton can block the opponent's slash. If he can't be cut open, he wins. It was cut open, but there were still several layers of cloth defense below. Even if he can't break through the cloth defense, he still wins. Even if he cuts through the cloth defense, his real exoskeleton will come next. Unable to cut open the exoskeleton, Jia Yan still wins. Don't underestimate Jia Yan's focus on defense. When he wasn't wearing a metal exoskeleton, he relied on cloth defense to resist bullets. What kind of monster is Shoiki Yokota? He, Jia Yan, is the real monster. Clang. Mars explodes. The katana cut deep marks on the surface of the metal exoskeleton, but it still couldn't completely break through the metal exoskeleton. But Jia Yan stabbed Yokota Shoiki's body, was also slashed by the katana and deviated from its original trajectory. The two cross each other. Come again. Jia Yan didn't stop, turned back and continued to attack. At this time, Shoiki Yokota, who seemed to be fully displaying his combat power in order to save his life, finally showed his powerful strength as one of the top 3 strongest men in the world. When? Clang. Sparks kept rising, and a series of light and shadow effects flashed in this dim passage. This is a battle between a mosquito monster and a human monster. Jia Yan continued to launch attacks. Although his body was split open time and time again, he would adjust his body shape in less than a second each time and launch another attack. Finally, with one slash, the T-shaped metal plate with the weakest protection on Jia Yan's back was completely loosened from the latch. Click. Every time you hit it, the sound will be different. No. If this part receives another slashing blow, it may be completely damaged, and my wings will be exposed. When the wings are hit, I will be in danger. Jia Yan was slightly shocked. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 114. Restore 2 updates, hope you can give me some support. Compared to Jia Yan's surprise, Yokota Shoiki showed an expression of surprise. At the same time, he looked at Jia Yan, who was wearing an exoskeleton, and found that he still had a fragile organ exposed to the outside world, which was the 2 slender tentacles at the front of his head. This discovery made his eyes light up. Initially, the monster in front of me didn't seem to have much weakness, but after actually fighting for a while, I discovered that it had quite a few flaws. Have the opportunity. The cold murderous look in Yokota's eyes became more intense, and his originally somewhat desperate mood turned into a desire for life. Jia Yan attacks calmly again. At the same time, try to use your weak side to withstand the blow of the katana blade. After this actual battle, if you let me design a metal exoskeleton again, I will have a better plan, but now is not the time to think so much. Jia Yan's fighting spirit has not weakened at all. When? The katana struck Jia Yan again. Although this time Shoiki Yokota consciously slashed the 2 tentacles on the front of Jia Yan's head with the blade, but Jia Yan's flying speed was so fast and his body shape was so unpredictable that it is impossible to accurately cut the tentacles. Yokota Shoiki was filled with resentment. He felt that if he had not been injured or poisoned and his body was in peak condition, he would definitely have a chance. But all this was done deliberately by Jia Yan. There is no such thing as what if. He had no choice but to survive, gritting his teeth and forcing his weak body to continue moving. A display of the strength of world-class monsters. Another slash. Ping. Suddenly, Jia Yan found that the samurai sword had smashed the vial hanging around his neck. CHR-379 virus liquid splashed in the air. Some of it happened to be sprinkled on the injured area of Shoiki Yokota's arm. Ugh! Yokota felt that his already inflexible arms became paralyzed in an instant. His physique is not comparable to ordinary people, but this virus was originally designed and developed for humans, and it will be effective as long as it is humans. Although the amount of liquid splashed out was not much, it could only cause Yokota to be paralyzed for a moment. But this is already a fatal flaw. The virus bottle hanging around his neck broke. Jia Yan was shocked at first, and then when he saw General Yokota slapped his arm, he was suddenly happy again. He just brought this potion by the way because he didn't know if it would be used. Unexpectedly, the container was instantly shattered by Shoiki Yokota's katana, and instead it was infected with a little virus, and now his arm is paralyzed. Chance. There was a faint light in Jia Yan's eyes, and his pierced body suddenly turned in a different direction. Japanese monster. Die. Jia Yan's 4-foot blade, stained with the frog's toxin, carried immense power and pierced Yokota Shoiki's chest with the force of a tiger and a wolf. Ah! Shoiki Yokota roared in disbelief. He looked at Jia Yan's front feet, piercing his chest by a full 10 centimeters. Look at the flying creature wearing metal armor in front of you. At this time, the eyes of the metal creature, which are protected by layers of metal iron mesh, have a faint luster. Shoiki Yokota spit out a mouthful of blood unwillingly. Jia Yan exerted his strength and pulled out one of the front legs that was stabbing the opponent's chest. Then he looked at the Japanese master in front of him and slowly flew back. This man is the strongest among all the humans who have invaded the underground world. Jia Yan could guess this when he saw him killing the purple worm. Even if Jia Yan is able to kill the opponent despite the disadvantages of serious injuries and shortage of ammunition, it is definitely an incredible success. Shoiki Yokota smiled miserably and took a step back, traveling across the human world. Except for the Chinese old man Hua, he was no match. This man believed that he could easily escape even when surrounded by a small army. But today, he, a monster, known as one of the top 3 beings in the world, actually capsized in this underground world. Fake monsters are fake after all. There is still a huge gap between it and a real monster. Monster. Yokota softened one finger, and the katana that had been following him all year round slowly fell down the channel, dozens of meters below. His body also leaned against the cave wall and slowly slid down. Red blood overflowed from his chest and overflowed again. Jia Yan was still watching this person not far away. The other person sat down for a while, still moving, but not long after, he stopped moving at all. Just a pair of pupils, staring at Jia Yan, as if unwillingness to penetrate from the eyes, to shoot down Jia Yan in the air. However, looks can't kill. No matter how unwilling he is, he must suffer such a heavy blow. The top 3 in the world, the most powerful human being known as the immortal monster. Die. Another super strong human died in my hands. Jia Yan looked at the Japanese monster who was still staring at death, and his pair of compound eyes flashed with more brilliance. I'm strong. After killing several human supermasters in a row, Jia Yan confirmed this fact. After confirming that the strong man Yokota Shoiki was dead, Jia Yan, who had been waiting for a long time, slowly flew closer. Then she stopped on him and started rummaging around. Poor the top 3 super strong men in the world, the Japanese Yokota Shoiki, not only had to be killed by a giant mosquito in such a deep underground unknown to the world, but his body was turned over miserably after death. But Jia Yan can't control that much. Found it? Not long after, Jia Yan took out a blue crystal from Yokota's jacket pocket with his front foot. This crystal is slightly smaller than a human palm, and its whole body is a deep blue color. Looking at the brilliant light flowing through it, there is a faint brilliance showing in the dark. It is as beautiful as a peerless treasure of magical craftsmanship. However, Jia Yan did not notice its beauty at first sight, but was struck by the strong attraction and fatal fear of the azure crystal. When he first saw it from a distance, he felt that this crystal had a fatal attraction, even more exaggerated than when he saw the black liquid. But at the same time, there was also a strong sense of fatal danger that made him afraid, which he realized at that time. However, now that I have obtained this azure crystal, these two feelings are instantly amplified by more than 10 times. I want to absorb it. But what should I do? Jia Yan could hardly control his desire. Fortunately, the fatal danger also came at this time, shaking his whole body. If Jia Yan could sweat, he would definitely sweat profusely. Keep it for now, this thing can't be used now. This underground world has been discovered by humans. It is definitely not a place to stay for a long time. I will go down quickly and get the other loot. After standing on the rocks for a long time, and finally getting used to the temptation of the blue crystals, Jia Yan flapped his wings and flew up. He wants to go back down and get his loot. Not much time. With so many strong men coming to the underground world, no one knows what changes will happen to the surface next. So he has to step up. Call. Jia Yan used his wings to glide and land on the cave floor. The rope around my neck can also hang the crystals and the bottle of black liquid. As for the mysterious juice from the brains of these death cockroaches, absorbing it now and putting it directly into the stomach is the best way to carry it. Jia Yan just did what he said. Time waited for no one. If you wait for one more minute, there will be more potential dangers. He wasn't even sure. Since the Chinese military kings were here, it was possible for the army to appear on the surface at any time. If we delay for one more minute, we don't know what changes will happen to the surface world. The bottle containing black liquid next to Hampton's body was picked up by Jia Yan, and he tied it to the rope around his neck using his nimble front and middle legs. Then he cut off the entire pocket of James' jacket, bundled it hastily with the rope, placed the azure crystals inside, and hung them around his neck together with the black liquid. After these two tasks were completed, all that was left was the corpses of giant moths all over the ground. The corpses of 60 or 70 giant moths. At least 90% of them were killed by Jia Yan. Jia Yan once said that he would return to the underground world and kill these giant beetles, and he did it today. He didn't hesitate, he just thrust out with his mouth part. The mouth needle pierces the brain of a dead giant cockroach, skillfully searching for the mysterious juice to suck. I need to speed up, he urged himself in his mind. At the same time in the surface world. Dear viewers, have you seen it? This is the mysterious building complex I mentioned before. I believe many friends who have read my posts know that we have experienced many dangers in this building. Now we are revisiting the same place, but because we didn't dare to get too close to the previous gunfire, so we can only record the distant appearance for everyone. Two figures, a man and a woman, quietly appeared in the bushes near the factory building. This pair of men and women are very familiar from the back. If you look carefully, you can tell that they are Jiang Ximing and Ye Tongyu, who once experienced life and death adventures in the factory and then narrowly escaped. The two men were chasing clues about the giant mosquito, and actually returned to this place that they were extremely afraid of. Because all the clues, including the most likely origin of the big mosquito that saved mankind, is this factory. If you want to restore the truth of the matter, you can only return here again to pursue information. Jiang Ximing was taking pictures, while Ye Tongyu, who aspired to become a reporter in the media industry, was in front of the camera, giving a slightly green explanation. The two of them were recording without turning off the machine because they didn't know what would happen in this place, so they had to keep the machine on and record everything. Suddenly, Jiang Ximing, who was the photographer, approached Ye Tongyu and drank softly, "There is someone, hide it quickly." Both of them were shocked and quickly fell down in the grass. There were bursts of footsteps in the distance. The footsteps were very orderly, and there were so many people, that they were still ringing for several minutes. 100 meters away from the footsteps, the heads of two young men, a man and a woman, were quietly raised from the bushes. Army. Audiences, please look at the camera. 100 meters away, there is an army of hundreds of people marching. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 115. All blocked chapters have been restored. Happy, please collect them. Yatang's slightly nervous and trembling voice sounded outside the camera, and then the camera lens turned 100 meters away. As expected, there was a team of soldiers walking in the jungle. Each of these soldiers carried firearms and made very rhythmic sounds as they walked. They were completely different from ordinary people, but looked solemn. Perhaps they were going to perform a very difficult task next, so except for the sound of combat boots on the ground, there was no sound at all. The destination of these people is obviously those buildings. Did you see that these soldiers entered the building? Yatang spoke nervously and excitedly to the camera. As a media person, it is her biggest wish to dig up very powerful news. Of course, if it involves the army, it seems difficult to release it at will, but these two young people are just starting out, and they only want to use the captured images. Once uploaded to the internet, the subsequent impact is beyond their control and expectation. Of course, things are not over yet, their filming is still going on. Behind the soldiers, there was a group of people like scholars. Each of these people carried equipment. Compared with the soldiers, their marching speed was slower. It took several minutes for the army of more than 300 people to pass through the jungle in front of Yatangyu. The front team has entered the factory gate. Surround them all. The soldiers trotted quickly one by one, with all their guns loaded. They followed the commander's instructions in order to surround several buildings. The top priority was the severely injured and pale-faced soldier sitting outside the door of the number 2 workshop building. 7 or 8 soldiers raised their guns and aimed at his head. Everyone put down their guns. Naturally, some of the non-commissioned officers knew this legendary king of soldiers. After all, there were not many king of soldiers in the whole of China. Although this injured king of soldiers seemed to have done nothing in this battle, he was actually a well-known figure who had been famous in the army for a long time. Exist. You are finally here. The king of soldiers smiled bitterly and moved his body, but he grinned due to the pain. Medical soldiers immediately came forward to treat his wounds. There is nothing we can do. The Star-Spangled Banner Nation and the Japanese nation have done something big this time, otherwise we wouldn't have received the order to move in so late. What is going on inside? The sergeant who talked to the king of soldiers naturally had a certain relationship with him, and the two of them should be old acquaintances. Chaos. Don't you know it? Even that monster from Japan is here, the king of soldiers smiled bitterly. What? Even he's here? The sergeant's expression changed drastically. Now he was really thinking about whether the 300 elite soldiers he brought were enough. Immediately ordered to go down and make the encirclement even tighter. No one would believe that this so-called Japanese monster, an immortal monster that has surpassed ordinary people's imagination and has been famous all over the world for so long, would actually die under a remote and dilapidated building passage in Huaxia Kingdom. What killed him was a real monster. This is probably news that will shock everyone around the world to the point of dropping their jaws. It was a huge mosquito, but almost no one would believe it if a giant mosquito of only 20 centimeters could kill several well-known masters in the world. Just because the body is huge, it does not mean that the combat power is strong and it can defeat humans. Which one is bigger? It must be animals such as whales and elephants, but these two animals are not the same. Under the wanton hunting of humans, they have become rare species that need protection to survive and reproduce. Therefore, a mosquito that is only 20 centimeters in size is definitely not able to kill several masters from the Star-Spangled Banner and Japan just because it is many times larger than other mosquitoes. Clang. Clang. Zzz. In the underground world, this big mosquito is still going about its business quickly. Dozens of giant cockroaches have sucked most of the mysterious juice. Compared with before, Jia Yan's body is now larger and stronger, so he can hold more mysterious juice. Dozens of giant cockroaches can provide just enough mysterious juice for Jia Yan to drink. Zzz. When he was about to finish sucking the mysterious juice of a giant cockroach, he had already moved a long way, and the metal exoskeleton of his feet stepped on the ground, making a crisp sound. Clang. Approaching the next giant cockroach corpse, the giant cockroach that was sucking at the same time finished sucking, discarded it, immediately picked up the next one, quickly inserted the needle into the mouth, and skillfully sucked up the mysterious juice. I feel it. The energy of the mysterious juice quickly restores my exhausted energy. It is indeed a good thing. But we can't start mutating now. It's too dangerous here, I have to hold on. Let's wait until we leave here. Jia Yan sped up his movements, and he hastily absorbed the mysterious juice from the brains of the remaining 7 or 8 giant cockroach corpses. Buzz. Jia Yan spread his wings instantly. There seems to be gunfire in the underground world. Are they the 2 Chinese soldier kings? Are they not dead yet? But it's none of my business. Leave now. I don't even have time to take away Li Kiken's notepad, will definitely be discovered by the team coming down from China in the future. However, it is better to make this kind of thing public, and it will also serve as a warning to future generations. I have to go. The sound of flapping wings is getting louder and louder. He raised his eyes and looked at the scenery around him. This underground world really carried him too much. Not only did several mutations occur here, but even the factory relied on the mysterious air of this underground world to be able to produce purple-red medicinal liquid and black liquid. It can be said that without this place, Jia Yan would not be where he is now. There are still too many unanswered mysteries here, such as why the oxygen content here is so high. So what is the machine that the Japanese regarded as a sacred object? What are the 3 monsters around the machine that don't seem to be living creatures? And the azure blue crystal I got, what is this thing? There are so many unanswered questions. But now that this place has been discovered by humans, Jia Yan believes that he has no way to compete with humans head-on. He has no choice but to leave, leaving these unsolved mysteries for humans to develop. Maybe I won't have the chance to come back again. What a pity. Jia Yan glanced around and shook his head. Groan. His wings that had been vibrating finally transformed their power into upward lift. The speed instantly exceeded the limit. Yin yin. Hoo ho ho. Jia Yan is surrounded by hurricanes caused by extremely fast speeds. Enter the channel instantly. The body of Shoiki Yokota flashed past death in an instant. He crossed more than half of the passage in an instant. The mysterious juice plays an energy role in the stomach. This makes Jia Yan's body feel like a tireless engine, soaring rapidly. He needs to go out quickly and find a place to carry out his next mutation plan. The influence of the mysterious juice has begun to appear. Quick, 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 Jia Yan was flying at super high speed. Yin yin yin. Jia Yan only felt that all the tentacles and ears heard were the sound of wind. He couldn't even measure how fast he was going. It's really fast. But all this will soon become a thing of the past. Waiting for the series of things in his hand to take effect, he will mutate again and become a stronger existence. What seems extremely fast now will surely be nothing by then. Jia Yan is looking forward to it. Yin yin yin. Boom. Driven by the power of the mysterious juice, the speed rises to another level again. Finally, a bright light from the passage above appeared in Jia Yan's compound eyes. He still speeds up. Go, go, go. The pipe above the passage is still in a state of being exploded. But there were already 7 or 8 elite Chinese soldiers standing near the passage. These soldiers loaded their guns one by one and aimed at the winding passage below. It is said that several of the world's top powerhouses have descended to this passage. These soldiers occupy a better position. When those people come up, they will attack directly. Things have reached this point. China announced a military exercise almost at the same time, but it was short of actually starting a small-scale war with the Stars and Stripes and Japan, so now there is no need to care about the reactions of these two countries. Anyone who dares to come to China to destroy the strong ones will be killed directly. Did you hear anything? It seems to be coming from under the passage. First confirm the opponent's identity. Our two top military masters from China are also below. Yin yin yin. Just when several soldiers were confused, the target of that voice flew directly to the place below the pipe at an almost incredible speed. Yin yin yin. It's like the loud noise of a plane flying is sounding. Yin yin yin. This is a 20-centimeter monster wearing a metal exoskeleton. Quick. It's so hard for the eyes to react. Call. When the soldiers' expressions changed greatly and their guns were pointed at the monster, the flying monster had already swooped out of the passage with the roaring wind. Fly out. Shoot. Shoot. When the sergeant among the soldiers saw this monster, he shouted loudly. At the same time, pull the trigger of the firearm in your hand. Bang bang. Bang bang bang. Suddenly, countless gunshots rang out. However, these bullets either did not hit the huge monster in flight, or they did hit, but were bounced away by the opponent's metal exoskeleton one by one. These soldiers were elite enough. With their instant reaction, many bullets were able to hit the high-speed flying monster without even firing. Yin yin yin. The pair of compound eyes of the flying monster are hidden under the metal protective net, emitting a faint luster. Not only did his speed not decrease, but it directly increased it to a new height. The momentum is so appalling. The energy bonus of the mysterious juice and the changes in biological organs caused by mutation make it transform into an even more terrifying monster. Thanks to the three brothers and sisters 878kh, Depressed Fool and Magic Dragon Tasha for their rewards, many thanks. Welcomes book lovers to come and read. The latest, fastest, and most popular serial works are all available in mobile phone users. Please go and read. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an Interstellar Giant Mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 116. Please collect it. In the jungle outside the factory, two young college students, a man and a woman, heard those violent gunshots. Everyone in the audience, can you hear it? There are gunshots over there. Something must have happened. Such violent gunshots, yet Tangyu was almost incoherent, and his face became extremely pale. Fortunately, she still remembered the explanation. The camera lens kept shaking up and down because of the cameraman's nervousness. Following some sporadic gunshots. Yin yin yin. A huge noise rang directly from the open space a few buildings outside the factory. At the same moment, the sound of gunshots suddenly intensified. Bang 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 bang. Bang 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 bang. It can be said that hundreds of firearms are roaring and exploding towards the target. Did everyone hear that? This is simply a war. What happened over there, at? Yatangyu's explanation voice suddenly stopped. Look, she shouted in surprise. The camera lens suddenly increased. A huge flying monster wearing metal armor made a deafening sound when it flapped its wings. From among the several buildings in the factory, it seemed like 9 dragons were rising into the sky, soaring upwards. Yin yin yin. Countless bullets passed by, and some even directly hit the flying monster. But all attacks seemed to have no harm to it. Anyone with excellent eyes can see that on the outer layer of the metal exoskeleton of the monster's body, some clots are escaping from the body like water. Although these water-like things have not solidified yet, they already have extremely high defense. Some bullets cannot even penetrate them if they hit them. Yin yin yin. The huge monster soared into the sky at a 90-degree angle. Countless bullets either missed him or hit him directly. But none of them can pose a threat to it. The monster in the lens seems to be telling the world in this way: I am coming. Big Mosquito. The male and female college students outside the cameras screamed almost at the same time. They came here just for the rumored Big Mosquito, and the basic appearance of this Big Mosquito often appeared many times in their dreams. Now that they saw this metal monster, it was obviously difficult to judge the appearance, but it was still the third one. They immediately recognized that this was their target, the mutated giant mosquito. The camera lens is focused on the big mosquito flying into the sky. This mosquito is now wearing a black metal exoskeleton that looks extremely powerful. Now it spreads its wings and flies in the hail of bullets. Yin yin yin. The sound was like a dragon roaring for 9 days, and the body was flying higher and higher, flying up to 200 meters in the air. His wings were spread out, almost a meter wide. His speed is extremely fast, almost comparable to the top speed of ordinary small aircraft. Buzz. The gunfire became sparser and sparse, and when it stopped completely, the flying monster was already far away from people's sight. Immediately afterwards, the metal monster disappeared in the distant mountains, disappearing. The camera filming the scene here also kept following it. When the flying metal monster disappeared, the scene moved to several buildings in the factory. The soldiers there were all dumbfounded. Even though they were elite soldiers, facing such an invulnerable flying monster, no one seemed so calm. The monster in the picture is like a flying dragon ascending into the sky, its momentum rising like a rainbow, forming a strong contrast with a group of soldiers on the ground holding advanced firearms, but they can only watch the monster go away, with no way to do anything. The men and women in the bush were so excited that they couldn't contain themselves. They returned to this border city again and once again came to the jungle where they experienced a narrow escape from death. What for? It's this big mosquito. As their savior, and so mysterious, one of the two students plans to be a journalist in the future, and the other is a biologist, so there is no reason to miss it. So this time the two borrowed the school's photography equipment and came to this place at their own expense, hoping to get meaningful news. But I didn't expect that I actually met the real owner, and there were so many soldiers carrying out certain activities, and even attacking the big mosquitoes. It's a headline news. However, the two people were not overly excited. Yatanyu saw a group of soldiers with police dogs searching the surrounding area along the bushes. His expression changed and he quickly pushed Zhang Shiming. Immediately afterwards, both of their expressions changed slightly, and they quickly exited the bush and ran away in the direction they came from. The two students had no idea how much of a disturbance their video would cause. Jia Yan is flying in the air, surrounded by the air flying quickly. The air was very cold. Jia Yan didn't know how fast he was now. He just felt that he could be faster. Faster, faster. However, the mutated body forced him to stop. Jia Yan only felt that he was constantly mutating and squirming. This change forced him to stop flying. Arrive. When he insisted on flying to a certain area, Jia Yan's eyes lit up. He began to descend. The boundary below is near a small village. There is a cliff that is rarely visited by people. Halfway down the cliff, there is a small, dark cave. Jia Yan dodged and entered this small cave. There is a laptop computer and a mess of equipment placed in the cave. If someone doesn't know this, they will think that it has something to do with humans. But who would have thought that this is actually the secret base of a flying mosquito? Jia Yan didn't have any extra energy to look at the equipment placed on the ground. As soon as he ran into the cave, he landed on the ground and then crawled up. Pain. The mysterious juice caused severe pain to the body for some unknown reason this time. In the gaps of the metal exoskeleton, clotted liquids constantly appeared. These liquids overflowed from the metal, and then slowly wrapped Jia Yan's entire body. What happened? A flash of horror flashed in Jia Yanfu's eyes. He tried to take off the metal exoskeleton, but he couldn't take it off. Jia Yan's heart was full of horror. If he mutated while wearing a metal exoskeleton, not to mention other things, even if the metal exoskeleton restricted the growth of his body, he would be exploded alive. The effect of the mysterious juice is to enlarge the body every time, and the ability to mutate is not very strong. But if the metal exoskeleton is stuck to the condensation and cannot be taken off, it will definitely be very sad for him to grow up inside the metal exoskeleton. As you can imagine, his body is expanding and growing, but the metal exoskeleton limits his growth. There is only one final result: he will be suffocated to death. Why is this happening? Why can't the metal exoskeleton be taken off? Jia Yan was worried. He looked at his body and then noticed that the clotted liquid was constantly seeping out from the gaps in the metal exoskeleton, as if it wanted to condense on the surface of the body again. This condensation appeared at the wrong time. Although it had helped to withstand several bullets before, now the entire metal exoskeleton is stuck to Jia Yan's body and cannot be taken off. No, I can already feel my body expanding. What should I do? Jia Yan felt that his body wrapped in a metal exoskeleton was slowly expanding and growing, but the metal exoskeleton directly compressed the body inside, and he began to feel uncomfortable. What Jia Yan couldn't see was that inside the metal exoskeleton worn on his body, some clotted liquid slowly squirmed after penetrating the metal. They are like extremely corrosive sulfuric acid, rapidly decomposing the metal substances in the metal exoskeleton. In just a few moments, the metal substances were dissolved and entered into these clots. Then through the connection between the clot and the body's organs, it directly enters Jia Yan's body. In just a short moment, Jia Yan's body now contained not only mutated substances, but also metallic substances. All this happened without Jia Yan's knowledge. Even if Jia Yan doesn't do anything, those clots will always melt the entire metal exoskeleton. It's just that by then, Jia Yan's body will be fused with too many metal substances. According to the characteristics of the mysterious juice, in addition to enlarging the body, it will not excessively mutate the body. With too much metal in his body, it really depends on God whether he can survive. Jia Yan still didn't understand this at this time. In his heart, he was extremely frightened that the metal exoskeleton might cause disastrous consequences of crushing his body. He has obviously become so strong, is he going to die in this situation? Even the strongest human beings have been killed several times. Even the small army before them fired a hail of bullets, but they couldn't do anything about it. Could this be their final swan song? Not willing to give in, Jia Yan felt that his body continued to expand. The body was tightly bound by the metal exoskeleton, and the internal organs were squeezed together. Is there any way to get out of this desperate situation? Jia Yan was unwilling to die like this. Suddenly, he saw two items hanging around his neck. By the way, black liquid. This liquid seems to mutate in a direction according to the crisis of the creature. Last time, due to the explosion and collision, I mutated into a defensive direction. Maybe it will have a similar effect this time. Jia Yan was a horse doctor. He struggled to lift his front feet, which were swelling but were tightly suppressed by the metal exoskeleton. He used the blade on the front feet to cut off the rope hanging around his neck. Jingle. A clear glass bottle containing black liquid and a bag containing azure crystals fell to the ground. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 117. Please collect it. Jia Yan reached out with his front foot and grabbed the glass bottle among the two items directly into his foot. Hurry up! He used his strength to turn the bottle cap. The metal exoskeleton is a bit slippery, making it difficult to open the bottle cap. Fortunately, Jia Yan spent some time and opened it. There is a dark liquid in the bottle. This liquid has a certain viscosity and seems to have some residue. If you don't know better, you will definitely think it is dirty water from some smelly ditch. But in the eyes of people who understand, this thing is definitely a treasure. Jia Yan hesitated in his heart. Will there be any undesirable consequences if the mysterious juice is consumed together with the black liquid? Ugh! A burst of pain hit him. I can't control that much. Anyway, if you don't fight, you will die. It's better to fight once. Jia Yan gritted his teeth in his heart. I have been cruel to myself so many times, let's try again this time. He uses his front feet hard. He pulled the glass bottle containing black liquid in front of him, and then inserted the needle through the mouth of the bottle. Sizzle! The black liquid in the bottle was decreasing rapidly. If someone could see the changes in Jia Yan's body, they could see the black liquid entering the body at this time. Compared to the docile mysterious juice, this black liquid is like a scourge. Extremely powerful. The places in contact with the body immediately changed. The stylet, the mouth parts, and then the abdominal tissue. Finally, mixed with the mysterious juice. Boom! It was as if there was an explosion ringing in Jia Yan's ears. After the originally mild mysterious juice was mixed with the black liquid, it actually exploded with a medicinal power that was far more ferocious than the mysterious juice and the black liquid. Boom boom boom. Jia Yan's stomach made a dull sound as if he had eaten an explosive. It hurts. Jia Yan almost cried. Anyone whose stomach explodes would not be able to bear it. And this kind of explosion in Jia Yan's body is not only in the abdomen, but gradually spreads out in all the places where the mysterious juice and black liquid spread. Boom 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 boom. The sound was like dull thunder, constantly ringing in the body of Jia Yan, the flying monster. It seems that even the molecular structure that makes up the body is being destroyed. Jia Yan spit out a mouthful of liquid. The liquid was light red and black. It was the blood in his body after several mutations. He had been reborn for so long and experienced many dangers, but this was the first time he saw his own blood. It was clear that this blood was no longer the blood of a normal insect. Because of several mutations, the colors are very bright. After spitting out this mouthful of blood, Jia Yan suddenly became even weaker. He looked a little dazed, and the scenery in the cave in front of him kept spinning, making him dizzy. Hold on. Don't faint. Jia Yan forced himself to stay awake. This was what previous mutations had done, and this time he was no exception. He must stay awake and feel the pain and changes anywhere in his body. If you faint, you might die. It hurts, it hurts. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt, it doesn't hurt. Jia Yan was in pain all over his body. The pain was difficult to describe in words. He even had a thought in his mind, I have been reborn as a mosquito, why do I still insist on not dying? Wouldn't it be more liberating to die? To bear this pain alone, for what is it? No one understands, no one comforts, the pain, sadness, loneliness, everything has to be endured by myself, it is better to die. This thought came to Jia Yan's mind. In fact, these thoughts had been bothering him for a long time. Every time he encountered difficulties and dangers, similar thoughts would appear. Thinking about it, as a human being, he was reborn into a mosquito body. Although according to Jia Yan's idea, his mosquito had successfully transformed into a very powerful giant mosquito. But this pain, sadness, and loneliness have not changed at all. Strong people usually have a fragile heart hidden under their strong appearance. Although Jia Yan always acts very strong, in fact he thinks he is very fragile and is far from being as strong as he appears. Now this kind of pain that ordinary people can't bear comes, and all the negative emotions burst out at once. But how many times have you survived before? You want me to give up this time? No way. Even if I can't find the meaning of survival now, I will find it. It doesn't hurt, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt at all. I won't die. I will never die. Jia Yan, who thought he didn't have enough perseverance, was actually using unimaginable perseverance and strength to hold on and refuse to faint. The world in front of me was hanging upside down, and the scenery in all directions was unclear. Jia Yan didn't know what had happened to the metal exoskeleton that bound him. The pain he felt was so intense that he could no longer feel the pain of the metal exoskeleton that bound his body. He felt the pain of tearing his body apart all the time. It was raging, causing him to become semi-fainted even though he held on and refused to lose consciousness. If he could see the changes in his current body, he would definitely be extremely shocked. Because now, he is actually completely covered by the condensation on the surface of his body. The condensation wrapped around Jia Yan's entire body, directly forming the shape of a squirming monster, and the color of the condensation changed perhaps because it was mixed with black liquid. The original clot is dark enough. But now the color of the condensation is even darker. It seems that even the light that passes through is sucked in by the strong black color. What's even more frightening is that there are metal debris floating on the surface and inside the condensation. This is the metal exoskeleton that Jia Yan originally wore on his body. The metal exoskeleton, made of the top-grade military steel of the Star-Spangled Banner, was decomposing at an extremely rapid rate without any hindrance under the corrosion of condensate mixed with two mutated substances. Keep breaking it down. This speed is like throwing a ball of sand into water. In an instant, it disperses from a tight piece of metal to countless fragments. The hard metal exoskeleton that originally covered Jia Yan's body, a super strong metal that could block bullets, completely fell apart within a few minutes. All turned into tiny pieces. Then the fragments swam in the condensation. They were still visible to the naked eye at first, and then were decomposed and decomposed again by the more intense corrosiveness of the condensate. Soon it became invisible to the naked eye, and even completely merged with the condensation in the body. The condensate contains metal. It is no longer a simple biological substance, but has the characteristics of metal. And this condensation is still swimming in the body organs of the giant mosquito that are constantly mutating and expanding. Its migration is to bring about the tissues and components required for a certain body mutation, and then part of the condensation is formed into the new required ones. Ingredients, stripped from body organs. This change is simply earth-shaking. However, in fact, this change is impossible. The mysterious juice and black liquid are indeed extremely effective, but Jia Yan has used both of these things before. Even if they are mixed and produce unpredictable changes, after all, the super strong body foundation of insects will form a strong resistance to any drugs and poisons used. The initial reaction of the body that was so strong that it exploded was indeed the effect of mixing two things, but this effect could only last for a short period of time before disappearing. So why is Jia Yan's current body still having such a big reaction? Even the biological condensation almost turned him into an alien slime, with his entire body soaked in the biological condensation. Then the focus will be on the feet of Jia Yan's body. Under Jia Yan's front foot. What Jia Yan himself didn't know was that he had cut off the rope around his neck and dropped it together with the glass bottle filled with black liquid, as well as the bag containing the blue crystal. He was so anxious before that the azure crystal in his pocket happened to roll out of his pocket, and then fell near Jia Yan's forefoot. After that, Jia Yan's mutation began. The biological condensation produced by those large strands continued to spread to the ground when constructing Jia Yan's new body. Then at a certain moment, it finally touched the blue crystal on the ground. This kind of object that Jia Yan longed for and feared actually began to be melted by the condensate. Like a metal exoskeleton, it decomposed into countless fragments in an instant, and then penetrated Jia Yan's body directly through the fluidity of the condensation. Boom! The explosion-like sound in Jia Yan's body became even more violent. What happens in this small cave is unknown to outsiders. But it doesn't mean that the big mosquito will not be noticed by the outside world. Just when Jia Yan, the giant mosquito, was enduring unbearable changes in the cave for his next pupa break, the outside world, the big mosquito appears again. Is this a military exercise or a war? A web post appeared in a well-known online forum. Then, this post seemed to drop a bomb into deep water, immediately detonating the entire network. News about that big mosquito again. The rescuing the mosquito, which has caused a lot of excitement in China and even the whole world, was actually captured on video again. Regardless of whether this post is true or not, this is enough to attract people's attention in the first place. There have been a lot of similar posts recently, and some masters who claim to be highly skilled have even produced a series of simulated videos of giant mosquitoes appearing. Some of them are difficult to distinguish between true and false, causing a lot of doubts and quarrels on the internet. However, the posts that appeared on the internet this time use a more realistic perspective and shooting technique, making people more convinced of its authenticity. What's even more eye-catching is that this video also records footage of an elite Chinese army. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 118. Some people who read the post clicked on the video with the attitude that it didn't matter if they were cheated, and they were all shocked. Does this look like a video made with technology? Are those soldiers extras? What about the effects of firearms? That thing in metal armor at the end is the big mosquito. It can actually leave calmly in the hail of bullets. Isn't it invulnerable? If it is true, how did the two men and women talking in the video capture such news? Finally, some people who were confused read the article in the post carefully. What a factory! And the poster also said that he was once saved by a big mosquito. Could there be something else going on? For the unclear points in the post, there is also a link to another post, which depicts the dangers that teachers and students Yetongyu encountered earlier in the dense forests of northeast China. The post was posted very early, before the big mosquito that caused the craze appeared. The two posts written by the poster are conclusive, and the content is also lifelike, as if everything he experienced is real. Now everyone couldn't sit still. Owner, what you wrote is true. Are those buildings the reason why the giant mosquito was born? Are there other such terrifying creatures besides giant mosquitoes? Lu Zhu is very good at making up stories. I have read it. Haha, don't believe this poster's nonsense. This post is all fake. You see, this kind of creature cannot be justified biologically. Last time I saw it, it could stop a bullet. Now I see it. He actually wears metal armor and runs around in a hail of bullets. Are you filming a science fiction movie? Is the person who posted the post the beauty of the host? She is so beautiful, please take a photo. Add one upstairs. The most important thing is beautiful women's hot photos. It doesn't matter whether they are big mosquitoes or not, whether they are true or false, it has nothing to do with us ordinary people. This post is once again regarded by most people as a game played by 3D production masters, and it may even be a hype incident created by the beautiful host in the video for herself. However, when the number of followers of a post reaches a certain number, this post that attracted people's attention and forwarded it disappeared from the internet, and the related video could not be found. The content in the post actually attracted people's attention. If you are so anxious to delete the post, is it true that what the post describes is true? Some people who have saved the content of posts and videos circulate these things privately one by one. Some things cannot be banned. The more you block it, the more people will believe it is the truth. At this point, this post really became popular. And in a hotel room in Tumen City, a young woman looked at the message in front of her computer screen, and her face changed. Why was this post blocked? Is it because it involves the military? Yetonyu thought of the last post she made, and someone reminded her that she had betrayed the country's interests. At this time, her face couldn't help but change color. Zaya? Let's go quickly. I just read your post and I feel that we must be in trouble. Let's go quickly. Let's go back to Shanghai first. My teacher may have a way to help us. Jiang Shiming knocked on the door of Yetonyu's room and kept saying with a pale expression. Young people do things with passion, and it turns out that they really have an impact, and they suddenly realize it. Now considering the impact of the matter, everyone suddenly looked ugly. Okay, wait for me. Yetonyu responded with an unnatural expression, wanting to organize his notebook and belongings. But at this moment the door knocked again. Yetonyu's expression changed, and after looking at Jiang Shiming, he stepped forward and opened the door. Behind the door were 5 or 6 military personnel in military uniforms. The leader looked at the two young people, frowned and snorted, "Are they Miss Yetonyu and Mr. Jiang Shiming? You know what you did, just let us go, let's take a trip." The two young men immediately stood stunned on the spot. Maybe two young men and women who look alike have only one word in their hearts, and that is nozuanity. The fermentation of the Big Mosquito incident has had an impact far beyond these two young people. However, at the center of the incident, it seems that progress is not as fast as expected. The oxygen content below is extremely strong, and the air contains unknown chemical components. It is very dangerous to go down hastily. But 2 of our soldiers are still alive and dead down there. If it's poisonous, why don't we bring oxygen masks and other equipment down there? In a factory located in a large forest, an officer of a soldier team got into an argument with some scientific researchers who came with the team. This will cause unpredictable consequences. What are we here for? We are here to ensure the lives of you soldiers. Otherwise, who will be responsible if something goes wrong? An old man among the scientific researchers stared, as if he was not afraid of the group in front of him at all. The bulk of the soldiers. Besides, the monster came out from below yesterday afternoon. Since there is such a one, there might be other monsters, so we need to do more analysis and research before we can let you go down. The old man shook his head and said, and then turned to scientific issues, "Did you see that there is this active enzyme in the air molecules in this channel? This is a new species that has never been discovered. Now the ingredients are not high, but they have already had a certain impact on the space we are in. The content down there may not be high. For the safety of your soldiers, it is normal for us to prevent you from going down. Please understand our work." The officers who commanded the elite soldiers all looked ugly. But at this moment, a soldier with an even uglier expression than them came to report. Major Chen ignored our obstruction and entered the passage. What? Everyone in the temporary command post established in the office building in the 3rd building looked at each other. This was not approved yet, so I went ahead impulsively. Major Chen was the powerful Chinese soldier who was injured and waiting for the army to come over. At this time, this man directly got into the passage without waiting for the order to come down. But think about it, the 2 powerful soldiers who lost contact below are personal friends of the soldier surnamed Chen. It is not unreasonable for him to impulsively enter the passage at this time. After pondering for a moment, an officer shook his head helplessly. Now that he has gone down, let's go down too. Don't wait for the scientific analysis report. You organize 100 people, carrying fully armed and oxygen masks and other equipment. We will set off in 10 minutes, he gave an order to the deputy beside him. Not long after, the heavily armed soldiers got into the passage one by one. At this point, the scientific researchers had no choice but to stopping it one by one. Compared with the equipment of those strong men, these soldiers did not have such advanced equipment. They could only rely on the equipment they brought with them to make rappelling tools, and then slide into the passage one by one. Isn't this the monster from the Japanese country above? He died here. One by one, the soldiers landed underground and saw a scene that stunned them. These people are elites. Before setting off, all the soldiers have a certain understanding of the enemies that may appear in this mission. As for the country-level monsters that the Japanese country may send, it is even more important. However, according to this information, the top 3 strongest men in the world who have experienced countless wars and blood rains are actually leaning against the cliff of the cave, just sitting there with no eyes in sight and losing their voices. This simply makes all the soldiers who are missing become extremely worried. Trembling. Report: the body of the Japanese monster Yokota Shoiki was found below. Report: the bodies of 2 super mutants, Hampton and James, from the Star-Spangled Banner country, were found below. Next to their bodies, there were dozens of dead groups of bees-like creatures. Report: the body of a Japanese junior female officer was found below. Report: a huge underground space was found below. It has a good ecosystem. A series of messages caused the expressions of all the officers and soldiers in the temporary command post above the surface to change constantly. It's okay for the super mutant to die below, but that Yokota monster from Japan also died below. This is simply unthinkable. What on earth happened to these people? How come even the top 3 human beings in the world are killed? Also, the soldiers reported that there was actually a vast underground space beneath the ground. And also has a good ecosystem. This is definitely a great discovery. The several scientific researchers sitting in the temporary command center all had expressions of ecstasy on their faces. Obviously, everyone is full of interest in the vast space below. There is an ecosystem at a depth of more than 1 kilometer underground. That is definitely a major discovery. The next news made everyone above even more excited. Originally, it seemed that even the national-level monsters in Wagyu town were dead, and many people gave up hope on the survival of the 2 soldier kings who were chasing the enemy deep into the ground. But the news coming from below filled the entire temporary command post with smiles. Report: we have contacted 2 major soldiers, and they are still alive. The soldiers' reports were full of sincere joy. Not bad. Keep marching and rescue the 2 officers. Immediately convey the order to the temporary command post. The voices of soldiers accepting orders were immediately heard below. It seems that this mission is the right one. Not only did we successfully rescue 2 major soldiers, we also accidentally discovered the underground space. More importantly, we found all the monsters in the Japanese country dead underground. This is the most important thing for us in China. Good news. In the temporary command post in the office, the colonel of a certain Chinese army who issued the order was very excited. With this successful experience, his next promotion to general level will probably reduce a lot of resistance. Thinking of this, the officer had a smile on his face. But the next moment, the screams from the communication equipment and the sound of firearms firing made the colonel's expression change. Reporting to the commander: there are many flying monsters underground, and the headquarters is fighting with them. What's even more terrifying is those 3, click. Over at the communication equipment, communication was suddenly interrupted. It seemed that the correspondent's military walkie-talkie had been destroyed. What happened? Everyone in the command post stood up with greatly changed expressions. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 119. This volume is finished. Thank you for reading. Please read the remarks at the end of the next chapter. On this day at the end of September, the fate of the Earth's world reached a turning point. The arrival of this turning point will mean that the world has officially entered an ill-fated era. That night, according to the investigation by the General Administration of China, this matter is just an isolated case, and the general public is advised not to worry too much. The appearance of aliens, is it a mutated creature or some kind of special species that we don't know about? It is said that the cause of the incident is a country's research facility built before the World War. I don't know if you still remember the big mosquito that caused a sensation before. Whether there is a connection between the two, I believe this clue will attract the attention of relevant research institutions. A giant creature is about to attack the city. 9 major arguments prove that this is not unfounded. World media. Quoting reports from the Chinese media, the Huaxia Kingdom encountered a special event early today. A total of 3 giant creatures with unique shapes attacked the town after a brief battle with the army, and then hid in the bush forest. The Chinese side has officially issued an invitation. Many well-known zoologists in the world are flying to Tumen, a previously unknown border city in China. This is Yinghe Daily News, urgently reporting a news for you. This is the news received tonight. 3 giant creatures suddenly appeared in the territory of China. After a fierce exchange of fire with the army, they attacked again without any damage. In a small village, several houses were damaged, and these 3 giant creatures left calmly. There is no information about the casualties of people yet. This news was like detonating a depth charge, which made many media and special things enthusiasts very excited. The media began to hype it up, and some relevant personnel and even hype stars joined the team to expose it, and the momentum was very loud for a while. The discovery of the giant creature was released by the Huaxia Kingdom in desperation. It wanted to hide this fact, but because several giant creatures attacked a place called Liangshui Town in the Huaxia Kingdom, it had to announce the existence of this creature to the outside world. Exist. Of course, humans at this time still don't know what a strong precursor signal the emergence of this case will be in the future. At this time, most people in the Earth world still regard it as a chat topic after dinner. Who would have thought that such a distant thing would be closely related to him in the future? And near a small village under the jurisdiction of Liangshui Town, not far from the scene of the incident, there is a smooth and flat cave at a 90-degree right angle. On the ground in this cave, there is a huge creature that has also caused a sensation. Lying in it, not knowing whether he was alive or dead. The sun high in the sky has already turned twice. This means that 48 hours have passed. This creature was still motionless and seemed to have no signs of vitality. However, just when the sun sets again and the moonlight shines in the sky, one of the front legs of the huge creature suddenly trembled. Immediately afterwards, not only the front feet, but also the middle and rear feet, and the 6 long legs shook slightly. Click, click, click. The sound of some hard pieces breaking continued to sound in the cave. A type of cracks began to appear on the surface of the giant creature's body, and as time went by, these cracks became more and more numerous and longer. Click, click, click. Finally, in the extreme state where a certain crack appeared, with a ping-pong sound, a hard block on the outer layer of the living body directly cracked and fell to the ground, revealing the dark and strong claw tissue inside. Ping ping pong. Countless fragments fell down at the same time as if they got some kind of signal. Kaka, ping pong. Boom boom. The tendency of countless fragments to fall, and the oxygen dust on the ground, suddenly filled the entire cave with dust. The scattered dust even leaked to the outside of the cave, making the entire cliff wall covered with dust. If someone was observing from the outside, they would definitely easily observe the inside of the cave. Vision. However, this place is already an inaccessible place, and now that it is night time, there is no need to worry about being noticed. The moonlight was hazy, and inside the dusty cave, this haziness added to the haziness, making the huge creature trapped in the debris seem like a looming mysterious existence, adding to the mystery. Just when the dust spread, the body of the dark creature crawling on the ground actually moved. His 6 long legs gradually moved, then supported the ground, and actually stood up like that. Click. More hard pieces fell to the ground, and the entire monster seemed to be free of impurities, completely revealing its original body color. Black, pure, and full of fatal temptation. Black thoroughly, dark mysterious. The entire body of the huge monster was a pitch black color, and this blackness was very thorough. But in the black color, there is a faint metallic luster. If you move your body casually, there is a sound of metal clanging. Clang. Clang, clang, clang. Some agitation is shaking everywhere. When the monster stood upright, his true face was finally revealed from the smoke. This is a giant monster with a body length of 1 meter. He has slender limbs, which are upright and have a metallic luster on their surface, especially the tips of a pair of 4-foot, which seem to have sharp blades growing on them. His body is strong, with a pair of wings growing on the back of his chest and abdomen. These wings should be the absolute weakness of this creature, but at this time, the wings have turned completely black with a metallic luster. The upper wing veins have a clear shape, but they are more than 10 or 20 times thicker than those of ordinary flying insects. And those wing membranes are no longer light and thin, but have a metallic appearance. They don't look light and thin, but hard and heavy. A 20 centimeter long tail needle has a sharp tip and a full metallic feel. If it hadn't grown on the monster's belly and tail, everyone would have thought it was a metal substance. Huge, hard, and full of metal. This is what this monster that looks like a mosquito feels like at this moment. Click. Click. Clang, clang. The monster tried to move forward on 6 legs. Incredibly hard. The ground was dug into the ground by me. How hard must my exoskeleton and clots be now? The monster, that is, Jia Yan, looked at his body that had changed violently again, and couldn't help but feel filled with excitement. He doesn't even know what he looks like now. All I know is that I am stronger than ever. Compared to the underground battles of the past few days, the intensity has increased by no means. It has a 1 meter long body, but its wings are spread out and all 6 legs are straightened. The range it can embrace is even more than 3 meters. It is simply an unprecedented giant mosquito. Jia Yan controlled the breathing function on his ventral side and felt that his ever-evolving respiratory system had undergone great changes at this time. The air was sucked into the abdominal cavity, and then extracted through the evolved and complete respiratory system. The oxygen in it is necessary for the activities of this huge body. Jia Yan looked at the hard rock cliffs of the cave with his compound eyes. Then one of his front feet with sharp horns gently stabbed the cliff. Poof! These horny front feet with metal components actually penetrated into the rock effortlessly. This, Jia Yan was shocked. His front foot only stabbed lightly, but to his surprise, it actually succeeded. How sharp should these sharp horns on the front feet be? My current body seems to have really changed too much. Not only has it become bigger, but it has also inherited the characteristics of the metal exoskeleton. The front feet and the top of the head are the sharp blades of the previous metal exoskeleton period. Time actually became a part of my body. Why on earth is this? Jia Yan looked around and saw no trace of the metal exoskeleton at all. To be continued. Thanks to the brothers and sisters of 878kh, Sun Eater and Buried for their rewards. This chapter only has 2,000 plus words, please find it at Chiyuan. I really can't write it out. In the evening, I finally got a reply from the editor, saying that there was no quota for the book this week, and he would apply next week. Anyway, even if he applied for it next week, he didn't know if it would be on the shelf next week. By then, this book would be on the shelves. It's over 400,000 words, alas. Today is October 10th. It has been exactly 2 months since I wrote this book. 400,000 words in 2 months. It is really not slow. In fact, it is because of everyone's support that Bayou can maintain the update speed. But I'm really tired now. Bayou's latest update will be adjusted. It may not be able to maintain 2 updates a day, but there will be 1 update a day. Next, it will depend on the performance of the shelves. If the shelves can reach 300 average subscriptions, it will start to explode. 10,000 words a day is no problem. But if there are only 200 per order, then so be it. As for the 100-digit order, the only thing I can do is find a way to finish this book and see if I want to start a new book. After all, Bulletin typed every day until his back ached and his finger tendons cramped. He was not writing for fun. Just like I told the book friends in the Q group, even if I want to write for everyone without asking for anything in return, my family, relatives, and friends must accept it. Every time I go out, I shirk the excuse that something is wrong, and when they ask, they have to say it's code writing. And then that kind of sneering look, you may not be able to understand it if you haven't been there. So I want the results to convince them, and at the same time convince myself. When it goes on the shelves, everyone should support it. Don't ask for rewards, just subscribe. Even if I write 10,000 words every day, a full monthly subscription would only cost me 2 bottles of water. I believe everyone can afford this. Bayou really needs everyone's support. Thank you. Welcomes book lovers to come and read. The latest, fastest, and most popular serial works are all available in mobile phone users. Please go and read. Reborn as an Interstellar Giant Mosquito. Author, Bulletin. Chapter 120. New volume, please collect it. Where's my metal exoskeleton? Jia Yan looked inside the cave with some horror. The depth of this cave is only 5 meters, and its height and width are no more than 1.5 meters. You can see the entire cave at a glance. But there was no trace of the metal exoskeleton anywhere. The metal exoskeleton has completely disappeared. Jia Yan is filled with doubts. What's going on? It was really painful at the time. My memory is a little confused. Did I take it off and throw it off the cliff, or? He tried to remember. At the critical moment when the mutation occurred, Jia Yan was unable to take off the metal exoskeleton due to the adhesiveness of the clot. So that he had no choice but to take the initiative to swallow the black liquid in the glass bottle. His idea is actually easy to understand. The supermutation reaction caused by the black liquid may be helpful to him who is about to die tragically, and may even explode the entire metal exoskeleton. But now, he has really survived, and his body has grown to 1 meter in length, and his wingspan can be about 3 meters. If the metal exoskeleton was still there, it would have killed him long ago. But now he is neither physically dead nor in the cave with his metal exoskeleton. It's impossible. It's impossible for such a large piece of metal to just disappear. Then there's only one explanation. Jia Yan looked at his sharp long legs full of metallic luster in disbelief. The metal exoskeleton was actually absorbed by my body. This. Jia Yan couldn't speak to himself for a long time. He stood in the cave, his mind was in a mess, and he didn't make any movement for a long time. In fact, many things can be figured out if you think about it carefully. Jia Yan thought that his body had grown strangely and inexplicably since the first mutation, but in physics, if a thing wants to gain mass, that kind of mass cannot be generated out of thin air. Since Jia Yan has increased in size several times, there must be other objects that provide him with a source of material. He thought about it carefully and finally shook his head, thinking of some details. The first mutation occurred in the train carriage. He remembered that when the mutation was completed, the metal floor of the train seemed to have been melted a little by something, and even the trash can was slightly deformed. At that time, he thought it was just like that. Then the second time, it was in a metal can. I remember that after the mutation was successful, the entire can was distorted. Even the overall shape was no longer a long tube, but twisted into a twist. Although there were no gaps, there were obvious signs of corrosion. As for after consuming the black liquid, it seemed that the liquid pool under Jia Yan had changed, but at that time he thought it was caused by an explosion in the workshop. Then I drank the mysterious juice a few times, but because there were so many rocks on the ground, I couldn't even tell if a part was missing. However, now, his mutation has reached the point where his body is 1 meter long, and his devouring and corrosive characteristics can be easily seen even if he is not paying attention. And this time it was so thorough that it actually swallowed the metal exoskeleton entirely. I haven't noticed this for so long. Isn't the law of conservation of energy the truth of the universe? Unfortunately, I thought that the mutated and enlarged body was born out of thin air. This is totally wrong. Jia Yan felt his metallic body and finally realized. Since it is the corrosive properties that allow me to have a mutated body, then the effect of the corrosive properties is that kind of condensation. I used to think that they were just tissues that formed clots. I didn't expect that they also played the role of corrosive liquid before forming clots. Other substances are then pulled into the body and become the raw materials for mutation. Jia Yan felt that there was still something that didn't make sense. For example, how can the condensate simply swallow up stones, metals, and the like to enlarge his flesh and blood body? And it seems that the new flesh and blood is not made of stones or metals. There must be something more critical in between. But Jia Yan doesn't need to understand these things. He is not a scientific researcher after all. He only needs to know why he mutates and what the principle of mutation is. This is enough. Jia Yan looked at his body again. On the surface of his dark body, there were still thick clots for defense. These clots were completely black, and a faint metallic feeling could be seen. This should be the effect of fusing a metal exoskeleton. In the past, my defense was much stronger than that of creatures of the same size. Perhaps it was because I swallowed a lot of metals and stones. But this time, I actually swallowed an entire metal exoskeleton, and that metal was basically still the latest special steel developed by the Stars and Stripes country. Jia Yanfu's eyes lit up. So how strong will my current defense and physical strength be? It's so exciting. With a body of 1 meter, Jia Yan no longer looks small. Although he is still slightly shorter than the average human height of more than 1.5 meters, if you include feet, etc., he is completely longer than a human. Moreover, Jia Yan noticed after moving his body a few times that his body now mixed with metal material might reach the level of an average human child. It is estimated to be 30 or 40 kilograms. Although this kind of weight will bring certain obstacles to flying, after Jia Yan felt his own strength, he felt that this weight is still completely bearable. As for the actual situation, you will know if you try it. Walking to the entrance of the cave. At this time, Jia Yan's body was already very large. If he was not careful, it would be difficult to turn around in this small cave. He looked at the full moon above his head. Today was a good day. This vampire could take advantage of the night to fly in the sky. Buzz. Buzz. A pair of wings slowly flapped behind him. Jia Yan found that when he took off, if he didn't use a little effort, he would not be able to pick up the speed for a while. However, he did not directly increase the flapping frequency to the limit, but slowly increased it little by little. It flaps its wings 30 times per second, but its body shows no sign of movement. It flapped its wings 70 times per second, but still showed no sign of movement. 150 times per second, I feel like my body is floating. 200 times per second. Hoo-hoo. The flapping frequency reached 200 times per second, and Jia Yan's 6 long legs finally left the ground. Hoo-hoo. He slowly levitated, and the scenery below slowly became smaller. Yin yin yin. The frequency of wing beats reaches 300 times per second. Because the wings increase in size, the edges of the wings directly break through the sound barrier and reach the speed of sound. It seems a bit laborious. Jia Yan's compound eyes were dim. My wing flapping limit has dropped a bit compared to when I was smaller. It can only reach about 500 times per second. But with such huge wings, the flapping frequency can still be maintained at 500 times per second. It's quite scary. When you gain something, you have to lose something else. Jia Yan understands this. Since the body has become huge, the flexibility of the body is likely to be lost. After all, it is impossible for such a huge body to remain as flexible as before. Of course, with an extreme wing flapping frequency of 500 times per second, Jia Yan can still make beautiful mid-air emergency stops and changes of direction, but it is no longer as smooth and flexible as before. Jia Yan controlled the muscles of his wings to twist, and the wings suddenly twisted to a certain angle. Because the wings have become huge and the muscles that twist the wings have been mutated and strengthened, Jia Yan can now glide easily and happily. Call. Suddenly, the high-frequency flapping noise disappeared, and Jia Yan's huge figure was gliding rapidly in the air. Hey! My gliding speed has been enhanced. And because my body has become heavier, my stability has been guaranteed. I can actually fly so stably even in the headwind. Jia Yan once again discovered some benefits of his mutation. The gliding flight method is more practical. The view of the forest below was rapidly receding. The tentacle hearing organs are filled with the sound of high-speed flying wind. Because of his enlarged body, his current speed has been even more horribly improved than before. Because there is no reference, Jia Yan can't calculate his current speed. Anyway, compared to the feeling of flying before, there is a fundamental difference. This huge and mysterious flying creature is swimming in the sky. But what he didn't notice was that at the bottom of the forest, 3 pairs of huge compound eyes shining with red light stared at his body that was flying quickly, flickering slightly. These are 3 behemoths that can reach a height of about 2 meters even if they are crawling on the ground. They also have 6 long legs, and these 6 long legs are extremely sharp and obviously have extremely strong attack power. These 3 monsters all have huge, round abdomens that take up most of their bodies. Compared with Jia Yan, their size and weight are even more terrifying, perhaps hundreds of kilograms or even a meal. It is no exaggeration to say that they are giants. These 3 creatures gathered together and crawled in a team in the forest. Just as Jia Yan flew over his head, the 3 monsters raised their heads at the same time, one of the eyes flashed with luster, and then the mouthparts located in the mouth, a pair of lips and feet stretched out, and certain objects were about to pass through the mouthparts. A giant mosquito that shoots high into the sky. Whoops! But at this time, it was just the time for Jia Yan to try his flying speed. In almost a second, his speed suddenly increased to a higher level, and he quickly moved away from the forest area where the 3 monsters were. The giant monster that was about to attack moved its red gleaming compound eyes slightly. Then the red light gradually extinguished, and the object in the mouth shrank back. The 3 creatures continued to line up and marched forward in an orderly manner.